Subscribe to my YouTube channel for deeply emotional, romantic, and mature stories that echo through your heart. Don't forget to like, share, and comment to support meaningful storytelling. Sarah Matthews stood at her kitchen window, watching the rain cascade down the glass like tears she refused to shed. The old Victorian house felt emptier than usual, its creaking floors and whistling winds a constant reminder of how alone she had become. At 32, she had built a life that looked perfect from the outside. A successful interior design, business, a beautifully restored home, and the kind of independence that most people admired. But tonight, as thunder rolled across the sky, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. The doorbell rang, cutting through her melancholy thoughts. Sarah glanced at the clock. 8:30 on a Friday evening. She wasn't expecting anyone, especially not in this weather. Wiping her hands on her apron, she made her way to the front door, her bare feet padding softly against the hardwood floors. Through the frosted glass, she could make out the silhouette of a tall figure hunched against the storm. When she opened the door, her breath caught in her throat. Standing before her was a man she hadn't seen in 15 years. David Chan, her college roommate's older brother, soaked to the bone and looking more lost than she had ever seen him. "Sarah?" His voice was uncertain, almost fragile. "I'm sorry to show up like this. I know it's been forever, but I didn't know where else to go." The years had been kind to David. His dark hair was now touched with silver at the temples, and lines around his eyes spoke of both laughter and sorrow. He wore a simple black coat that clung to his frame, and his hands trembled slightly. Whether from cold or emotion, Sarah couldn't tell. "David," she whispered, stepping aside to let him in. "Of course, come in. You're freezing." As he entered her home, Sarah felt something shift in the air around them. It was as if the house itself was awakening from a long sleep, recognizing that its solitude was about to be interrupted by something profound. "I know this is awkward," David said, shaking water from his coat. "I was driving through town and my car broke down about a mile from here. I remembered you lived in this area, and I saw your light on." He paused, his eyes meeting hers. "I probably should have called first." Sarah found herself studying his face, searching for traces of the young man she had known so briefly all those years ago. He had been 24 then, mysterious and unreachable, the older brother who visited campus occasionally, always seeming to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders. She had harbored a secret crush on him that summer, one that had faded into a bittersweet memory over the years. "Don't be silly," she said, taking his coat. "You're welcome here. Always." The word always hung between them, loaded with meaning. Neither was ready to explore. Sarah led him to the living room, where a fire crackled in the stone fireplace. The room was warm and inviting, filled with the kind of thoughtful touches that made a house feel like a home. Soft throws draped over comfortable chairs, books stacked on every available surface, and photographs that told the story of a life well lived. "You've done something beautiful with this place," David said, settling into the chair across from her. "It feels like you." Sarah felt a flush of warmth that had nothing to do with the fire. "Thank you. It's been my project for the past 5 years. Sometimes I think I bought it because it felt as lonely as I did." The admission surprised her. She rarely spoke so openly about her feelings, especially to someone she hadn't seen in over a decade. But there was something about David's presence that made her want to be honest, to drop the careful walls she had built around herself. "I know the feeling," David said quietly. "Loneliness can be its own kind of companion, can't it?" Their eyes met across the room, and Sarah felt a flutter of recognition, not just of his face, but of something deeper. A kindred spirit, perhaps, or simply two people who had learned to live with the particular ache of solitude. "What brings you through town?" she asked, curling up in her chair with a cup of tea she had forgotten she was holding. David was quiet. For a long moment, staring into the flames. I'm driving to Seattle. My mother passed away 3 weeks ago, and I've been settling her affairs. I thought I'd take the scenic route back home to New York, try to process everything. Oh, David, I'm so sorry. Sarah's heart clenched with sympathy. That must be incredibly difficult. It is, he admitted. We weren't close, but losing your last parent, it changes something in you. Makes you realize how much time you've wasted, how many conversations you never had. Sarah recognized the pain in his voice, the particular grief that came not just from loss, but from regret. She had felt it herself when her father died 2 years ago, leaving behind a relationship that had always felt unfinished. You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, she said gently. But if you do, I'm here. David looked at her then, really looked at her, and Sarah felt exposed in a way that was both terrifying and thrilling. She had forgotten how intense his gaze could be, how it seemed to see straight through to the parts of herself she kept hidden. I remember you, he said suddenly, from college. You were always so kind to everyone, so genuine. I used to wonder what it would be like to have someone like you in my life. The confession hung in the air between them, fragile as spun glass. Sarah felt her heart skip a beat, remembering all the times she had watched him from across a crowded room, wishing she had the courage to approach him. I remember you too, she said softly. You were always so mysterious, so distant. I thought you were the most interesting person I'd ever met. David's laugh was rueful. Mysterious, maybe, but really, I was just scared. Scared of getting close to people. Scared of being hurt. I'd been burned before, and I thought keeping my distance was safer. And now? Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Now I'm 47 years old, and I'm tired of being safe. Tired of keeping people at arm's length. Life's too short for that kind of fear. The admission felt like a door opening, and Sarah found herself stepping through it without hesitation. I know what you mean. I've spent the last 5 years building this perfect life, this perfect house, and I've been so focused on making everything look right that I forgot to actually live in it. Maybe that's why I ended up here tonight, David said. Maybe the universe decided we both needed a reminder that we're not meant to go through life alone. Sarah felt tears prick at her eyes. There was something so raw and honest about the way he spoke that it made her want to be equally vulnerable. I've been alone for so long. I'd almost forgotten what it felt like to want someone's company. And now? David asked, echoing her earlier question. Now I'm sitting here with you, and I don't want this night to end. The fire crackled softly in the silence that followed, and Sarah could hear the rain continuing to fall outside. That inside her warm living room, with David sitting across from her, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Hope. The guest room is upstairs, she said finally. If you'd like to stay until the storm passes, or until morning, or... She trailed off, not sure how to finish the sentence. I'd like that, David said. Very much. As they sat there, watching the flames dance in the fireplace, Sarah realized that something fundamental had shifted in her world. This man who had been nothing more than a distant memory just hours ago was now sitting in her living room, and she could feel herself opening up to possibilities she had long since given up on. Are you hungry? She asked, suddenly aware of her role as hostess. I was just making dinner when you arrived. I don't want to impose. You're not imposing. Sarah interrupted. I haven't cooked for someone else in months. It would be nice to have a reason to set the table for two. In the kitchen, they moved around each other with surprising ease, as if they had been cooking together for years rather than reconnecting after a decade and a half. David helped her slice vegetables while she stirred the soup simmering on the Mai-Fei stove, and their conversation flowed as naturally as if no time had passed at all. "Tell me about your work," Sarah said, handing him a glass of wine. "I remember you were studying architecture." "I was," David said, accepting the glass with a smile. "I've been designing sustainable housing projects for the past 20 years. Not as glamorous as it sounds, but it's meaningful work." "That's wonderful," Sarah said, meaning it. "I always thought you'd do something important with your life. What about you? Are you happy with your business?" Sarah considered the question, swirling the wine in her glass. "I love the work itself, transforming spaces, helping people create homes that reflect who they are. But I've realized lately that I've been so focused on other people's homes that I haven't been living in my own." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I've created this beautiful space, but I haven't been sharing it with anyone. I've been so afraid of disrupting the perfect order of things that I've forgotten what it's like to have someone mess up my carefully arranged life." David stepped closer, and Sarah could smell his cologne, something warm and woody that made her want to lean into him. "Maybe a little disruption is exactly what you need." "Maybe," Sarah agreed, her pulse quickening. "Maybe we both need it." They ate dinner by candlelight, the storm providing a dramatic soundtrack to their conversation. David told her about his travels, about the cities he had lived in, and the buildings he had designed. Sarah shared stories about her clients, about the satisfaction of turning a house into a home, about the loneliness that had crept in when the last client left, and she was alone with her perfect spaces again. "I have a confession," David said, as they finished their meal. "I didn't just end up here by accident tonight." Sarah's heart skipped. "What do you mean?" "I mean, yes, my car broke down. But I've been thinking about you for months. Ever since I saw your business featured in that design magazine. I kept the article, told myself I'd look you up if I was ever in the area. Tonight felt like fate giving me a push." Sarah stared at him, trying to process what he was saying. "You've been thinking about me. More than I should have been," David admitted. "I've been going through the motions of my life, doing all the right things, but feeling empty. And then I saw your picture, saw what you'd accomplished, and I remembered how you made me feel all those years ago." "How did I make you feel?" "Like, maybe I didn't have to be alone. Like, maybe there was someone in the world who could see past all my defenses and still want to know me." Sarah felt tears welling in her eyes again. David. "I know it's crazy," he said quickly. "I know we hardly know each other anymore. But sitting here with you tonight, I feel more myself than I have in years. And if there's even a chance that you feel the same way. I do," Sarah whispered. "I feel it too." They cleared the dishes together, their hands brushing as they moved around the kitchen. Each touch sent electricity through Sarah's body, and she found herself hyper-aware of David's presence beside her. When they finished, they stood facing each other in the softly lit kitchen, neither sure what should happen next. "I should probably let you get some sleep," David said, though he made no move to leave. "You should," Sarah agreed, but she stepped closer instead of moving away. "Sarah," David said, her name like a prayer on his lips. "Yes? I don't want to rush anything. I don't want to ruin this by moving too fast. But I also don't want to waste any more time pretending I don't feel what I feel." Sarah reached up and touched his face, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw. "What do you feel?" "Like I've been waiting my whole life for this moment. Like everything that brought me here tonight happened for a reason." "And what reason is that?" "To give us both a chance at something we've been too scared to reach for." Sarah stood on her tiptoes and kissed him then, soft and gentle at first, then with growing passion as he pulled her closer. It was a kiss that spoke of years of longing, of dreams deferred, of two people finally finding their way to each other. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. Sarah rested her forehead against his chest, listening to the rapid beat of his heart. "Stay with me tonight," she whispered. "Not just in the guest room. Stay with me." David's arms tightened around her. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." They made their way upstairs together, past the guest room David would have occupied alone, to Sarah's bedroom at the end of the hall. The room was decorated in soft blues and whites, with gauzy curtains that fluttered in the breeze from the cracked window. It was a room that had known only solitude for too long, but tonight it would witness the beginning of something beautiful. They lay together in the darkness, fully clothed but intimately connected, talking softly about their hopes and fears, their dreams and disappointments. David traced patterns on Sarah's arm while she nestled against his chest, both of them marveling at how natural it felt to be together. "I have to leave tomorrow," David said eventually, his voice heavy with regret. "I know," Sarah replied, though. The thought made her heart ache. "But this doesn't have to end here. If you want it to continue." Sarah lifted her head to look at him in the dim light. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that, in all my years of playing it safe, I've never felt what I feel when I'm with you. I'm saying that maybe it's time for both of us to take a chance on something real, even though we live on opposite sides of the country, especially because of that. We've both been stuck in our comfortable routines, our carefully controlled lives. Maybe we need something that scares us a little, something that forces us to step outside our comfort zones." Sarah considered this, her heart racing with equal parts excitement and terror. What would that look like? "I don't know," David admitted. "But I know I want to find out. I want to see where this goes, even if it means turning my whole life upside down." Sarah thought about her perfectly ordered existence, her carefully maintained independence, her fear of disruption. Then she thought about how alive she felt in David's arms, how right it seemed to have him there. "My business is location independent," she said slowly. "I've been thinking about expanding anyway, maybe opening a second office somewhere. New York could use a good interior designer," David said, hope creeping into his voice. "And Seattle isn't that far from here," Sarah continued. "I could keep my clients here, build new ones there." "Are we really talking about this?" David asked, his voice filled with wonder. "I think we are," Sarah said, surprising herself with her certainty. "I think we're talking about completely changing our lives for something we've known for less than 12 hours. Does that scare you?" "Terrifies me," Sarah admitted. "But the thought of letting you walk away tomorrow and never knowing what might have been scares me more." David rolled over so he was facing her, his hand cupping her cheek. "Then let's be terrified together." They kissed again, and Sarah felt herself falling into something vast and unknown. For the first time in years, she was choosing uncertainty over safety, possibility over security. And it felt like coming home. The next morning, Sarah woke to the sound of birds singing and sunlight streaming through her windows. For a moment, she panicked, thinking she had dreamed the entire evening. But then she felt the warm presence beside her, saw David's dark hair against her pillow, and knew that everything had changed. He was already awake, watching her with eyes full of tenderness. "Good morning," he said softly. "Good morning," Sarah replied, suddenly shy in the daylight. "Any regrets?" David asked, his voice careful. Sarah considered the question, taking inventory of her feelings. She felt vulnerable, yes, and uncertain about the future, but she also felt more alive than she had in years, more hopeful about what lay ahead. None, she said firmly. You? Only that I waited so long to find you again. They spent the morning, over coffee and breakfast, making tentative plans for a future that felt both impossible and inevitable. David would extend his trip, staying in town for a few more days while they figured out the logistics of their new reality. Sarah would start researching the possibility of expanding her business, of creating a life that could bridge the distance between them. I can't believe I'm doing this, Sarah said as they stood at her front door, preparing to drive into town to get David's car repaired. What part? David asked, taking her hand. All of it. Falling for someone I barely know. Planning to uproot my entire life. Believing that something this good could actually work out. David brought her hand to his lips, kissing her palm gently. Maybe the best things in life are the ones that feel impossible until they're not. Is that what this is? Sarah asked. One of the best things? I think it might be, David said. I think it might be the best thing that's ever happened to me. As they drove toward town together, Sarah felt a sense of adventure she hadn't experienced since she was young. The life she had built with such careful precision was about to be turned upside down, and for the first time, that prospect filled her with excitement rather than dread. David had been just a guest for the weekend, a stranger, seeking shelter from the storm. But in the space of one night, he had become something much more, a catalyst for change, a partner in possibility, a reason to believe that sometimes the most beautiful things in life come from the most unexpected places. The weekend was just beginning, but Sarah knew that whatever happened next, she would never be the same. She had opened her door to a lost traveler and found herself in the process. And as they drove through the sun-drenched countryside, hands intertwined, she couldn't help but smile at the beautiful uncertainty of it all. Love, she realized, was like her old Victorian house. It required courage to restore, patience to nurture, and faith to believe that something beautiful could emerge from the ruins of what came before. And with David beside her, she was ready to do the work,